Well, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we are very, very happy to do this video today because, say it,
It's good news.
it's good news.
The bus is fixed.
Joy is fixed. The virus is dead.
Yep. running perfectly.
Oh yeah, man, it's so nice.
Yeah.
So nice.
We have some footage to show you of some different things, but
Right now we're just going to tell you.
yeah, right now we just wanted to tell you what happened.
Yeah. And so here's what happened. Almost 13 weeks ago, I guess it was. We pulled into a little restaurant, stayed the night because they told us we were welcome to stay there for the night. Next morning got up and the bus wouldn't start.
Right.
So we did everything that we knew how to try to get it to start. So I called a mechanic and he came out and looked at it, said, must be the batteries.
Yes.
I'll test
He said he
them."
was going to test the batteries,
but then he never did. So we ended up anyway with 2 new batteries, and
Right.
that was
That was Clayton. That was about $700.
$700.
Then somebody said, "Oh, it's probably the starter."
It's the starter, I think.
Yeah.
So we we paid a guy because I had no tools with me to come out and pull the starter off.
Yep.
And we drove 2.5 hours to take it to a guy who rebuilt starters.
Right.
So what he did is he just looked at it, put it on the bench, and he ran it, and he said, nothing wrong with this starter, and he wouldn't charge us.
Right.
So we took it back, and I paid the guy again to put it back on.
Right.
So from there, interestingly enough, I'm gonna back up. There we go. From there, we went up to the kids' house in Colorado.
No, we went to Penrose.
Oh, we went to Penrose,
Where
yeah.
we used to live.
And there's a little auto shop there, and there is a little tire shop. And they worked on my bus for a week.
They have worked on our bus before.
That's correct.
Put some new brakes on it and new tires and stuff.
Yes.
And Joel, who owns it, is
Joel and Ron are truckers.
Yeah, they're truckers, so they know a lot about diesels. So we thought, well, they'd maybe just be able to find it real quick.
And have been for many years. They've been truckers. And so he said, yeah, we can find it. He replaced several parts. He worked on it for like a week. They did not get it fixed.
No.
So when I tried to pay them, they said, no, don't pay us. We didn't find out what was wrong. But I'm going to pay them for the parts because they wouldn't let me pay. We'll just send them some money. But then the third place we went was up into...
Actually, that was, let's see.
That's
4 people that actually worked on it.
That's correct.
So
I already
far.
got 4 people worked on it.
So then we went to Then we went up to Woodland Park.
And the first guy that told us it was probably the batteries was a diesel mechanic.
Yes, and one thing that we did is we put in, also you bought some ground straps.
Yes, I bought straps and made ground straps because several people told me, and Aaron Bockley spent hours with me on the telephone trying to figure it out.
Spent time with us.
Badge, everybody
Both
everybody needs one. Badge.
Yeah.
Badge spent time with me trying to figure out what it was. And anyway, I ended up changing out the ground, putting new ground straps on.
Yep. So then we went.
Didn't help. Then we went up to Colorado.
Yeah. Up to.
So we were
Woodland
doing
Park.
some remodel with John and Amy, helping them get a house ready, and had a great time with them. But when we got ready to leave, we called and found, called Oklahoma.
Yes.
And he gave us the name of a guy who actually has a mobile service to work on school buses.
Right.
So we met him in the Walmart parking lot in Colorado Springs.
Yep.
And he said, oh, I'll find it. I'm 70 years old. I've been working on these school buses for 50 years.
Yep.
I said, well, great. He said, you know, my rate is $105 an hour. You got to be prepared to pay that. And I said, no problem. No problem. So
just get it fixed.
Just get it fixed.
Yeah.
So he worked on it, and he worked on it. He worked on it for over 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then he said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to take this to somebody else. I can't fix it.
Yeah.
He said, I'm only going to charge you for an hour.
He couldn't find out what was wrong with
He
it.
couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. So he charged us for an hour. So that was I was thankful for that.
Yeah. So it was, apparently it was a season for us to spend some time with some of our kids.
Right.
Because then our friend Jimmy in Tulsa said, I know this guy who works on buses and he does the work out there. I mean, he is out there working on those buses day and night.
He
and
does too.
He can usually tell me about my motorhome when I call. He can usually diagnose it on the phone and has been really great. So we called this guy. His name was Jesus, spelled like Jesus. So Jim got really tickled every time he'd look at his phone and it said Jesus was calling. I said, you better answer that one, honey. But he actually, we called Jesus and he said, I can fix it.
I guarantee you I can
guarantee
fix
you.
it.
So Scarlett and James, our other daughter and son-in-law, were in the process of moving to Oklahoma. And they were going to be staying with our friends Jimmy and Nancy.
Right, so we got to spend some
So we
time
thought
with
that'd
them.
be great. We'll just go to Oklahoma and then we'll spend, it was a little closer than Phoenix.
And Jim and Nancy were so kind
So
and we
gracious.
had such a great time with
Yeah.
them. Yes.
And we spent some time over at Bob and Connie's house because we needed to
Bob
stay
and Connie
somewhere
were
else.
so wonderful and we just had such a good time there.
We have
in
the
Tulsa.
best friends
We
in the
do.
world.
But we were ready to get our home working
Yes.
again.
Yeah, so we took it to Jesus and he said, oh, I found what it is. It's the alternator, right?
$600.
600 and something. So then the next thing he said, well, the alternator didn't fix
That
it.
didn't fix it.
So then he said, well, it's the wiring harness. And when he took it out,
$2,500 for
that's
a
what he
new
said
one.
it was going to be. And he took it out and it was, the wires were melted
It
together.
had a place where it was melted.
So he said, it's a wiring harness.
That's
so
it.
we called Tony because we didn't, at AAA bus
Mm-hmm.
in Phoenix, because we didn't want to spend $2,500
Yeah.
for a wiring harness. I mean, this is
But
already
he was able to get us one much, much cheaper.
much cheaper and,
And
overnighted
it to us.
And then one of the parts, it didn't have one of the parts.
One little piece, one little end about that long that was wrong. So we went to Freightliner
Yeah.
and we picked that up $300 for a little piece about that long with a little fitting on the end of it.
Oh my gosh.
Woohoo!
It just hurts thinking about it. So then, it still wasn't fixed.
No, it still didn't work right.
And he
The
kept-
so he unplugged one of the plug-ins where the push-button transmission area. He unplugged one of those, and that got us to a point where we could. And he also put a disconnect on the battery. That way we could get the tail lights off.
Yeah. Otherwise we had to.
Otherwise, our battery would
We
run
had to
down
pull the
overnight.
fuse.
We had to pull the fuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he finally got it to a point where everything seemed to be working right, except just a couple things. Hydraulic oil temperature
Light was
light
on the dash.
would stay on. Anytime the key was off, it would
Yeah.
come on.
When the key was off, it come on.
The
and,
retarder light would come on when the key was off,
and the neutral light.
and the neutral light on the shifter would come on.
And then when you started it, it would say service engine soon.
Service engine soon.
And
So he ran a computer diagnostic.
Yeah.
And he said the service engine soon was because of a preheater on the engine. And he showed me where it was, said it's just like 4 bolts, easy to change out. When you find one, just put that in there and then that service engine light will go away.
So there you have it. So that, and he replaced multiple relays and changed wires, and
Yes, he did.
was just,
He worked so hard
borrowed
and
a
we really
book from
appreciate
someone.
it.
We went back to him 3 times after we paid the initial $1,800 or
And he
whatever
wouldn't
it was.
charge us for
and
anything
he didn't
else.
charge us for anything else because it still wasn't fixed, and he spent many hours after that.
Yeah.
So we have nothing bad to say about Jesus. He's a great guy and just
I think
so nice.
99 times out of 100 he could fix your bus
I
right
agree.
away. And his place is called, it's in actually Sapulpa, Oklahoma.
Sapulpa, Oklahoma.
And it's ABC and D.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A, B, C, and D. Yeah.
Bus sales, I think is what it says.
Okay, so fast forward, we came to
Fast
Flagstaff.
forward, we said, okay, we know somebody that could rebuild this bus for us in a heartbeat if he needs to. He knows buses. So we decided we were going to come to Flagstaff, where we checked the temperature. We're leaving Oklahoma, where it's 105.
Or 100.
And we come to Flagstaff, Arizona, where at night it's in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Daytime it's in the 80s, mid 80s, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
When we first got here, it was in the 70s.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So we parked here because we knew we were just 2.5 hours from Phoenix.
From Phoenix.
And in
we're
Phoenix,
AAA bus where Tony and Joe are.
It was 116 one day the week before we went down there.
Yeah, it wasn't that hot that Monday when we went down there.
So we parked here, and we called to Tony and Joe and said, "Hey guys, we're here. If you have a space for us, call us." So they ended up calling us like 9 or 10 o'clock in the
Thursday
morning.
at 9 o'clock.
And we didn't know they were going to call. We had already made plans for that day. And so they said, "Well, if you can't come today, you can bring it in on Monday morning."
Yep.
So I said, "Hey, we'll be there first thing on Monday morning."
So then, Monday morning.
We left at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
To make 5:30.
5:48 or something to
make
get there
sure-
around 8.
I should make sure we got there on time. So we
And
take
then-
off.
Yeah.
And halfway down there, our little indicator started saying, "You only have 40 pounds of pressure in your
Yeah,
inside tire."
Jim said, "Debbie, have you
You
turned
don't
on
have
the
to tell this part.
tire pressure monitor?" And something just made him, we believe, the Lord just told him, "Hey, you need to check your tires." And so he said, "Debbie, did you turn on the tire pressure monitor?" I said, "Oh, no, I didn't. Let me do that." Turned it on, and I'll start bells and whistles going off, lots of beep, 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 making lots of noise. And I looked, and it was like the right inside rear tire.
Mm-hmm.
And it was showing 26 pounds of pressure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So then it went down and down and down.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up in Camp Verde? No. It was down there close to there, though. I don't remember what the name of the town was right now.
Anyway, halfway between here and
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
So there's a truck stop there anyway. We pulled in, and we went in and asked the lady if there's anyone that could fix a tire.
Mm-hmm.
She gave us a couple cards, and we called a guy, and his actual name is Eli. But he didn't like his last name or his first name for his company. So on his card, it says Gomez.
Garcia's.
Garcia's
I think
road
it's Garcia's
service or
Road
whatever.
Service,
And he came out. He had been up just about all night the night before fixing somebody's tire. I called him at 7:30 in the morning, and he came right out. By 8 o'clock he was there, and he changed out that tire, and we had such a good time with him.
What a great guy.
What a great guy.
Yeah.
And so we were so grateful.
And the tire, what was wrong with it?
The only thing that was wrong with the tire is we'd been losing air in it for a while, and I had noticed that the valve stem was bent slightly. So he started looking at it, and he said, "I believe it's your valve stem, but I'm going to take it all off and check it." So he pulled the tire off, and checked everything. Didn't look like there were any problems at all on it. He put some goop on the rim, put it all back together, and put a new valve stem on it. Right. He didn't charge us for the valve stem. He said, "I've been carrying these 10 valve stems forever, never used one." Mm-hmm. So, and also, I think the valve core was a little bit loose, was another thing. He said when he first checked it, that valve core was loose. Yeah. So we got it fixed, and not much. I mean, he was so kind to us, and so then we headed on the road down to AAA.
AAA bus sales.
AAA, which is where we should have gone in the first place, I guess. But we had a good time the whole time.
We learned a valuable lesson, expensive but valuable.
Yeah, that's right. So we went to AAA bus, and when we pulled in there, we were late because we were supposed to be there first thing in the morning. And I called them and said, "We've had a flat tire."
Yeah.
So when we got there, it was close to noon, maybe
10 or 11
o'clock
like that,
or something like that. And Tony came out and looked at it and he said, I've been thinking about this and I'm pretty sure I know what it is.
Yeah.
And I said, great. So he and Joe together started working on it, testing wires, testing this wire. He said, I got a little machine that'll shoot a volt of a little electricity up each one of these wires, help us test it. And I said, okay, great. So in about 2.5 hours, less than 3 hours, he came to us and said, well, we know what it is. We're going to fix it.
Yeah, we've isolated the problem.
We've isolated the problem.
And we said, well, you know, they told us that we needed this new deal module in the computer panel here, and that we needed a new preheater and a couple other things in our service. And he said, I think all that's connected. Just wait until we get it all fixed.
When we're all
and see what
done,
happens.
I think they're all going to work.
Yeah. So he got it all fixed that night, put it all back together and everything. And he said, now I want you to stay here tonight, and tomorrow
let this engine all cool down.
we'll see if everything's working right.
Right.
So what happened the next day?
Well, the next day, he came in and he looked at everything and he said, well, it looks pretty good. We're going to test a few things first.
Yeah, but when we were driving here to Arizona from Oklahoma, what was the one thing that bothered us?
One thing that bothered us is that it was charging at 17 to 18, and it should be charging around 14.
Yeah.
So it was charging like, and so I just watched it. We stopped one night, and I filled all the, had to fill all the cells up on my battery, because it had, I knew it would boil at that high. It would boil that water out. So I used about 3/4 of a gallon to fill those up on the batteries. So, well, he said the next morning when he was testing it, he said, okay, we got a problem. Alternator's not working. And so
he said that brand new alternator you got, probably driving it with this short,
probably burnt out the regulator or something in the alternator.
So we kept that alternator.
We did.
We're gonna have it rebuilt, use it for something, for either to hook up. We've been thinking about hooking one up to our solar, so we may, you know, when we get together with somebody that knows what they're doing on that, get that done. And the other thing is the fuse box that's in the back, right above the engine.
Some of the mechanics previously,
some of the mechanics previously had put
changed
the wrong relay in, had some wires wired wrong and everything, and he couldn't figure out what's going on, so he just took another fuse box and replaced
that one out and replaced it with a new one. Not a new one out of a bus.
One out of a bus.
And the alternator also was out of another bus.
Right. It was a used one, but
it was so reasonable what he charged us. It was unbelievable. So we were very excited about it. It's all fixed. Everything worked. It was so neat to get in the bus. When you turn the key off, it goes off.
Yeah.
And no lights show.
No lights are on when the bus is off. No service engine soon light on when you turn it on.
Nothing. Everything's working perfectly.
The retarder works
here was
so
the surprising. The retarder works so much better than it had since we had the problem. So it was just working wonderful. And let's see what else works wonderful. Everything. Yeah. Now it did show that I was low on water.
And you were.
And I was. So when we got up here, I just watched it. We climbed a lot of hills coming up here, several thousand feet up. And when we got here, I just let it cool for the night. And the next morning, I pulled the cap and we filled it up with water.
Yeah.
So, man, we are in good shape now. There she is. Where's it? We're in good shape now to go anywhere.
Yeah.
We are.
We certainly hope so. But it was quite an experience, and it was probably the most trying time in this whole experience of being able to maintain our joy.
But nothing like things we've experienced in the past.
No, before we were even doing this, it was nothing like some of the other things we've experienced in our life. However, I will say this, it was very expensive. However, the time spent with our kids in Colorado, the time spent with our kids in Oklahoma and grandkids, that time is
Precious time.
priceless, as they
It is.
say. And so we are not sure where we're going next. Maybe up to South Dakota to
Just
change our
count it all
place of
joy.
residency. Yes, yes. Count it all joy.
That's
when
right.
these things happen to you, because a lot worse things could be happening.
And so we're just having
really
a
a
good time.
blessing.
Right now we're sitting in a forest. And I mean, it is beautiful. Now, our bus, let me just show you this. Our bus is right over there. And, but we're sitting here, and right here, let's see, there's Maisie, just hoping that a squirrel shows up. And we are, we're sitting here in this forest, just enjoying ourselves. I would guess that the temperature is probably about 72 to 75.
I think it's around 70 right now. It's
Maybe 70?
It's dropped quite a lot.
And it's just wonderful. You can barely hear the wind tonight. I don't hear any
Peaceful.
birds or anything at all.
It's been
tonight. It's
very,
just
very peaceful here.
Really, really
It's
peaceful.
one of those places where you kind of hate to leave, you know, but we will find somewhere nice to
Yes,
go
we
next.
will.
We may go to Walnut Canyon
Our 14 days are up here on
Sunday.
Sunday. So we will leave on Sunday and head somewhere.
Don't know where. We need to stay around in this area, because this is a weird thing when you're RVing full time. Trying to give people a permanent address, especially since both of our daughters moved within the last couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
So we were using one of our daughter's addresses,
Uh-huh.
and then she moved, and so we had our mail forwarded down to our friend's house in Tulsa. Well, during that process, my debit card expired. And they were supposed to be sending me a new one. So they did send me a new one, but they sent it to Scarlett's old address, and apparently it did not get forwarded.
So it went back to them.
So
I'm
who
sure.
knows where it went. So I called them today and tried to explain to them what was going on. And please
They
send
don't
it
have a
up here
clue.
to this mailbox plus in Flagstaff so I can get it. And they were like, is that your permanent address? Is that going to be your residential address as well as your mailing address? I said, well, you know what? Let's just say it is, yes. That's our address for
It's
now.
hard to explain.
It's just the poor young girl, and she didn't understand it all. So I just said, so we have to make a long story short, too late.
We're too
right?
late.
Too late for that.
to make a long story short.
We have to stay in this area for another week or so I can get my debit card.
Because we do have a mailbox place where you can have mail sent to that.
Yeah,
So that's what we had it sent to.
yeah.
It costs $5 for each package you pick up.
Yeah, and hopefully they don't send anything more than just that one little envelope. Hopefully it doesn't cost me $50 to get my debit card, but you know, whatever happens, you know.
We're just
So,
so grateful and so
Yeah.
thankful, and we hope that you have joy in your life. I tell you what, we do, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just make it a point to.
Yeah.
It doesn't always.
A lot. It's just
Things don't always turn out like you want them
it's
to.
a decision.
And we're not.
What was it our little granddaughter used to sing all the time?
You don't always get
You
what you want.
don't always get what you want.
Yeah, and I will say, you know, that it's not pleasant to have to spend thousands of dollars on a repair, especially when you know it could have cost you way less.
Uh-huh. But that's okay. We're blessed.
But you know, you just have to keep your chin up, attitude up, and
That's
keep
right.
going, because one of the things that's really encouraging are all the notes we get from you guys.
It is. Thank you for all your
you.
wonderful posts. Your, what are they called? Comments.
Yeah. Which
We
I've
do
been
enjoy
slow at
that.
answering lately, but I have gotten them answered.
Well, I was
finally.
pretty slow at even making a video for a long time.
Yeah,
I was hot and bothered.
yeah. Well, for sure. We'll be getting another video out real soon, I'm sure.
Well, this one will come right out.
Yeah, and then we went to the Musical Instruments Museum, which our friend Emily told us about in Phoenix. It was
Overwhelming.
overwhelming is the word. Yes, you couldn't see everything, but the
Huge.
most overwhelming, the most interesting part of all to me is how no matter how poor, no matter how remote, where people were, they would find something
To make
to
instruments
make
out
a
of.
musical instrument from. I
Yep.
mean, they took pieces of metal and people would take trash and make musical
They make
instruments. It
take
was
trash and make an orchestra.
it's just amazing how much music, what an
It's-
important part it is in our
And it's
lives.
amazing how
Everyone.
creative people are.
Maisie keeps going back and forth under the
Yeah.
tripod. So,
It's amazing how
Anyway.
creative people are. And people are wonderful. All over the world, people are wonderful.
Yep.
It just seems like some people, a few little people here and there like to be jerks. So if you find one of those, it's okay. They're out there.
it's not.
Just spend your time with the people who are fun to be around. That's the key right there,
Yeah.
isn't it, baby?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Make sure you're one of them that's
Yeah.
fun to be around. That's important.
Just, it doesn't matter. You've got, bad things going on. I know a lot of you have far, far, far worse things going on than a repair on your bus.
And we just pray for peace for you.
Yeah.
If you have health problems or whatever, we know that can be overwhelming, and we just speak
Can
peace into
It
your
can
life.
be, and we're so sorry for that. But we've been blessed. We haven't, had a lot of tragedies in our lives. We've had a lot of things that upset us in the past, and we've tried to learn through that we're not going to let those things get us down.
Yep,
And
that's
hopefully,
true.
hopefully you'll learn the same thing.
And you're practically perfect. You're like Mary Poppins.
Exactly.
So we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.